Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's such a joy and pleasure to welcome you all here to Temple Shir Tikva to join with us for this Shabbat service. This is our Zoom Shabbat, so members of the community, you should have received in your email the weekly schedule if you want to join us in the Zoom room, so you can choose whether to have a gallery view, a speaker view, whatever view you want just to be in the Zoom room, then you can do that. For much of the service, we will be in speaker view, so you'll just see one screen if you're watching via the live stream, Facebook or YouTube. But right now, everyone who's on the screen can give a wave because you're all on the screen so that people can see and wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom by waving to one another. There'll be a couple of moments where we'll do that in the service. And of course, this is not just the Shabbat of 7th day of the week. This is also the Shabbat of Pesach. We're in the midst of our festival of Passover. And in that context, it is so lovely to be able to open up the doors of the synagogue in this way and to have people in person on the screen with us. And not just the congregants, but we also have our band joining us this evening through the wonders of technology. They will be playing in the service as well. So lots to enjoy in this evening's service. As always, it's a pleasure to lead with Cantor Hollis, with Jay-Z, and with our student Rabbi Leah. So we hope you'll sing along, join along, pray with us, and be with us. And again, if you do want to join us in the Zoom room, you can find the link in the email. And we continue now by turning to page 11 as we sing the words of Dodi Lee. As we turn back in our Siddurim to page 2 and 3, as these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kedishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner Shel Shabbat v'shel Yom Tov.
Amen. And so with the candles lit and their brightness lighting up the room, we turn together in our Siddurim to page 2021, where we welcome the Shabbat bride with L'chadodi, singing the 1st, 2nd, 5th, 8th, and 9th verses. And as is the tradition for that 9th verse, we rise in body or in spirit, facing towards the door to welcome the Shabbat bride.
L'chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. L'chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Yishmiyanu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad, U'shemo echad, B'shem u'tiferet ve'letila, L'chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. L'chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki mekor habracha, merosh mikedem nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila. L'chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. L'chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Itoreri, itoreri, ki va'orech, kumi ori, uri, uri, shir daberi kevod Adonai, alayich nigla. L'chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Yamin u'shmol tifrotzi v'et Adonai taritzi al yarish ben parzi v'nismecha v'nagila. L'chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam besimcha uvetzohala, toch emunei am segula. L'chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. L'chadodi likrat kala, Shabbat Kabbalat Magadlu Maasechaya. Sing with me. Hallelujah. 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 Magadlu Maasechaya. Me'odam hu machshevotecha. Lai 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 lai. Magadlu Maasechaya. Me'odam hu machshevotecha. Hallelujah. Magadlu Maasechaya. Me'odam hu machshevotecha. Lai 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 lai. Magadlu Maasechaya. Me'odam hu machshevotecha. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.
We take a seat, and having welcomed the Shabbat bride, this is the moment in our service where we have a chance to welcome one another. And so we're going to allow a few of the people who are in the room with us, the Zoom room on the screen for everyone who's watching via the live stream. So you can give them a wave, wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom, blow a kiss, give a virtual hug, whatever it might be. And also, of course, text those people that you wish you could be giving a message to, because it still can't quite get the message to one another in the way that we might want. The best thing though about Zoom is we're never going to run out of space. So everyone is welcome in the Zoom room. You can all join us, and you can even bring your pets to synagogue when we're in the Zoom room, which is a definite bonus for all of us. So we turn now to the Chatzi Kaddish, which you'll find on page 26.
Vit kadash nei rabba, Belma divrach erutei v'yamlich malchutei, Bechai chon uvyom mechon, Uvchai dichol Beit Yisrael, Bagala, Bagala, Uvizman kari, V'himeru, Amen, Yehi shmei rabba mevorach, Le'olam olam me'amayha, Yitbarach, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, V'yitadar v'yitalei v'yitalal, Shemedi kudisha brichu, Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbichata v'nechemata, Damiran be'ama ve'himeru, Amen.
We turn to the Baruch Hu on page 28, and we rise in body or in spirit, facing towards the east for our call to prayer. If you'll please be seated. As we turn to page 30, our blessing speaks of God and God's role in creating time for us. The very act of creation, decreeing that God would work for 6 days and rest on the seventh, set time in motion. And the festival of Passover, in many ways, is the first time that our ancestors really marked time, beginning with that first day of the first month and then coming to the festival 15 days later. And for us now, we're almost at the end of Passover. It's that time where we hope that we'll have just enough matzah left to last us for the duration of the holiday. And it's that time where we start to look forward to the spring. We emerge from this festival looking forward to Shavuot. We started on the second night that cycle of counting the Omer, looking forward to when our people will receive that gift of Torah. We're always in the flow of time, always in a dialogue with time, always experiencing time through a Jewish lens for a community. And so we offer the blessing on page 30. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzvaot is your name, ever-living God. May you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening.
Baruch atah Adonai, Hamari Haravim.
And on page 33, as you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery.
Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Laolam Vaed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavecha uvechol nafshecha uvechol meodecha ve'hayu hadevarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha veshinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lachtecha v'aderech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha uv'kshatam lehot al yadecha ve'ayu letotafot beinenecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha ובישעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
I invite now Shir Chutzpah to give their version of the Passover Mi Chamocha, which can be found on page 40. That was incredible and a joy to watch. Thank you, Shir Chutzpah. And we will continue our service with a prayer for God to watch over us with Hashkivenu on page 42.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom Hamidenu shomrenu lechayim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom Hamidenu shomrenu lechayim. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom Hamidenu shomrenu lechayim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom Hamidenu shomrenu lechayim.
We now turn to Vishamru on page 44 as we celebrate both creation and the opportunity to rest.
Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. בינו ובין בני ישראל, בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם.
I invite us to rise as we are able for the Amidah, which can be found on page 46.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu v'imoteinu, Elohei Abraham v'Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Dekonei HaKol, V'zocher chasdei avot v'imahot, u'mevii geula livnei v'neihem, lemam shemo be'ahava, melech ozer u'moshiach u'magen, Baruch atah Adonai, magen Avraham v'ezrat Sarah, atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechai metim ata rav lehoshia, morid hatal, mechalkel chaim bechesed, mechai metim berachamim rabim, somech noflim venofech olim, umatir asudim, umekayem emunato, Lishenei afar, mi chamocha bal gevurot, umido melach, melech mimit umechayeh, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'neheman hatale hachayot meitim, Baruch atah Adonai, mechayeh hameitim, atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, Ukedoshim b'chol yom yehallelujah selha, Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh.
We continue silently through page 62 in our prayer books, and you may add the prayers of your own heart and be seated at the conclusion of your prayers. Thank you for that incredible rendition of Karav Yom. And it is now a time in our service where we think about those who are in need of healing. So we put these names up on the screen. We join together for the Misha Berach, which can be found on page 253.
Misha Berach Avotenu v'Imotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak v'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel v'Leah, Hu yivarach et hacholim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yamalei Rachamim Aleichem, Lecha Chalimam Urapotam Ulecha Chazikam, Vishlach Lahem Mehira Refuah, Refuah Shlema Min Hashamayim, Refuat HaNefesh Urefuat HaGuf, Hashta B'Hagala V'Zman Kariv, Venomar, Amen.
Amen. Earlier this week, on the first night of Passover, I was gathering for a Seder with friends on Zoom for the second year in a row. We were a motley crew, an intergenerational group of mostly LGBTQ adults who come from various cultures and backgrounds, who use a variety of pronouns like ze, here, or they, them, who range in age from 20 to 80. We read from a beloved Haggadah which centers justice and liberation, not just in celebration of our own freedom, but in recognition of labor rights, protests, queer and trans liberation, and anti-racism. It brought much discussion to the group, and in discussing the themes of slavery and freedom, a guest talked about her indigenous family roots and how Z doesn't even know the language that her family spoke in Martha's Vineyard. It has been lost in the centuries of colonization and oppression of natives. And that's not fair. There was no liberation or freedom from her family, for her family. Any chance to cross that sea has passed. I left a few beats of silence after Z spoke, And then I said, in perhaps some stronger language than I'll say here, that is messed up. I'm so sorry. At another point, we read a selection from the Trans-Liberation Haggadah that used certain language to curse the queerphobic and transphobic oppression and the ironies of visibility that many of us have to live with every day. I admit it, once again, I used a certain four-letter word that starts with the letter F. At these 2 points in our Seder, I resonated with the crass language used in response to something so unjust. As adults, it can sometimes feel powerful or liberating to swear at the oppressive forces in our world. I imagine to a more traditional crowd or a Seder with children, the use of this language wouldn't fly. But for most of us, it felt natural and intentional. A day passed, and I received an email from a friend of a friend who was present. Ellen, as we'll call her, was the only straight ally there, who was glad to be in company with many LGBTQ Jews in memory of her father, who was gay, but chose to stay closeted. At 80 years old, she was also the eldest in our company. In her email, she gave some feedback that it was jarring for her to hear the vulgarity that she sees is now fine amongst those of a younger generation. She thought about her father, who would never have injected such language at any time, much less at a holy Seder. She wished we would respect the elder generation more by not using the language that we did. As I thought about Ellen's message, I reflected more deeply on my own words and responses to anger and pain, and I struggled with what to say. I turned to this week's Parsha, Shemini. It's one of my favorites. I read from it on my bat mitzvah here at Shir Tikva years ago. In this Parsha, we have an enormously difficult and tragic event where two men named Nadav and Abihu, after offering God Eish Zarah, alien or strange father, are burst into flames and killed by the force of God's might. Though there are some theories, nobody really knows why. Their loved ones react in all different ways to this harsh tragedy. Moses, their uncle, tries in his words to justify what happened. Aaron, their father, reacts in complete silence. Perhaps he was in shock, or perhaps there were no words that he could say that could justify such a thing that happened. What about their mother, Elisheva? Like many women, we don't hear her voice in the biblical text directly. Yet our 5th or 6th century midrash often adds depth and interpretive stories to the Torah texts, sometimes even adding voices to women that we didn't see before. Our midrash on this parsha teaches that Elisheva refused to be happy. Previously, she could feel joy and celebration of her family's high-class status, but once her sons died, this happiness was suddenly changed to mourning. While men like Aaron and his remaining sons were ritually anointed with sacred oil and forced not to mourn publicly, women like Elisheva and her sisters, who weren't part of this ritual, presumably could. I can relate to Elisheva. Unlike her silent husband, she might have wailed and mourned like many Middle Eastern women of her time. She may have even cursed. But not all interpretation agrees with this midrash. Ben Hassan, a famous Jewish Moroccan poet of the 18th century, also describes the high status of Elisheva's male family members. But to Ben Hassan, after her sons died, Elisheva didn't mourn in full emotion. She held back some of her words and anger. He writes, "She could have cried, 'Woe is me, O God, how my luck has changed. How could you do this to me?' But she's a woman of valor, Eshet Chayil, who speaks with wisdom, who is bitter like Hannah, yet keeps her bitter words to herself, and does not complain to the heavens above. She did not challenge God, but accepted his judgment joyously, and recognized that God does what is right in his eyes." Looking at these two examples and ways of relating to Elisheva, I returned to the email I received from Ellen. I was thinking about how she might relate to Ben Hassan's version of Elisheva, the Elisheva who is valorized for remaining joyful and poised in her careful choice of words, even at a time that was tragic or disturbing. She was seen as strong in her ability not to cry or be sad or curse. Whereas I relate to the Midrash version of Elisheva, who wailed and mourned, refusing to be happy in the face of tragedy. I struggled with Ellen's message and how to respond, as I want to honor her voice and perspective. I do not want to disrespect those who have more life experience than I do and who come from a generation who perhaps use different language to express sadness or anger. And I do want to choose my words wisely, especially in a public forum like the Bima or at a community Seder. There is value to that. Yet in my heart, I also feel strongly that it's appropriate and may even be wise to respond with strong language of choice when something is so, for lack of a better term, effed up. When we see the horrors that are happening in our world today, and when I hear people sharing the things they are struggling with, I respond in the same tone that they give. I am angry. I also wonder if Ellen's father, a closeted man or others like him, ever wished to swear too. Did he curse under his breath at the homophobia and shame that forced him to stay in the closet all his life? And was he forced to stay silent, to act like a straight white man who doesn't show his true feelings to most people who knew him? I believe this to be the experience of many of us who are forced to hide. While I agree with Ellen that there may be a change in generational acceptance of curse words, I do think our attitudes and language can differ based on who we are and how we've been socialized. Oftentimes, boys and men are raised not to cry, which may explain why Aaron was silent. Women, especially Black women, are told not to be angry or are criticized for being too emotional, which may explain why Ben Hassan may have valorized Elisheva for holding back anger in his poem. I'll add that Black men too are often stereotyped or feared for expressing their very justified anger, while often white men are told that their anger can be expressed freely, sometimes in ways that are unhealthy. While it's not always one way or another, there are so many double standards that exist. And here's where I'm standing as a queer, white, Jewish woman who received this difficult message from a valued elder guest at my Seder Zoom table. As a woman, I've definitely been socialized to be polite, as Ellen likely has too, probably even to a greater extent. I've been socialized to act and dress in a way that is acceptable to a cis heteronormative society. Yet I'm also on a journey to subvert those messages, as I don't believe it's always healthy to be polite, nor to conform to the unrealistic and often unfair expectations of our society. I am struggling to find where I stand when it comes to my language. While it is important for me to read the room, I lean into the idea that it may be worth it at times to use a curse word or two in empathy when something terrible happens, or when I stand alongside people who are facing tragedy or difficulty that makes them angry. When the word reflects the horrors or disgust that I truly feel, or when I hear my Indigenous friend express anger and sadness with tears in her eyes, I believe I should join here in this feeling, expressing my empathy and emotion through my words to show that I care, even when I don't share the same experience as her. I think, like many of us, we're on journeys to figure out who we are and what language we use and when. I am learning through my life when and how to use my voice and express my emotion when things are rough, though I'm not always perfect at it, and sometimes it doesn't work for every person I speak to or care about. I do believe that sometimes the best thing to do when tragedy happens is to be silent, as Aaron was silent. There may be no words for what's happened. Other times, the best thing to do is to hold back, especially when we feel like we're going to explode in a way that is not useful to us or the people around us. Perhaps this may be part of why Elisheva, as a woman of valor, held back her anger in Ben Hassan's poem. And sometimes the best thing to do is express ourselves fully in a way that honors and reflects our true experience, even when it means we curse. Ultimately, if you too are feeling frustrated, like I am with the state of the world right now, or by the difficult things that you, your family, friends, or strangers are personally facing, I invite you to use the words that you feel are appropriate and empowering, to describe and express your emotion and anger or sadness to the people you love and support, and who support you. We don't all have to use curse words, especially when it's not part of our vocabulary or culture, and especially when we feel we can express ourselves in more carefully chosen words. And we shouldn't necessarily use certain language when it's around children or loved ones who don't feel the same way. But I think we can all learn something from Elisheva of our Midrash, who, while her male counterparts have to keep their emotions bottled up inside, is able to publicly mourn and express herself as a human with a full range of emotion, who may have even cursed and cried when her sons died. As our week of Pesach closes, let us recognize and honor the struggles of today that we or our neighbors are facing, sitting with each other when times get tough, and cross the sea with one another, together in empathy and love, and maybe even a curse word when that's what comes out. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Leah, for that powerful and personal message, sharing it with our community. As we turn now to page 282, we rise in body or in spirit, facing towards the east for the words of Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, לתקן עולם במלכות שדי, ונאמר דהיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
As we turn to page 294, we never conclude a service without sacred memory, remembering our loved ones who are no longer with us. This Shabbat, we remember the yard sites of Albert Abramson, Faye Bernstein, Phoebe Bloom, Esther Boverman, Laurie Brickell, Melvin Darroch, Peter Benjamin David, Eugene Alfred Field, Robert Fromson, Joan Jarvis, Jerry Kay, Rita Klein, Rhoda Kokora, Martha Levinson, Arthur Liebenson, Madeline Manchester, Edmund Margulis, Saul Maslin, Hugo J. Melvoin, Frank Nadell, Milton Press, Howard Rubin, David Nathan Saul, Robert Schwartz, Louis Schumann, Charlotte Smotroff, Norma Stern, Benjamin Tissenbaum, Shirley Torren, Melvin Tracy, Neil Traeger, and Beatrice Weiner. And during the month of Shloshim, we remember Cantor Jody Sheckman and Dr. Eleanor Clow, the aunt of Max Clow. We take a moment now to name those others that we might be thinking about personally. And for all those that we name out loud and for those we name in our hearts, we say together, Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah. V'almadi v'rachirutei v'amlich malchutei. V'chayachonu v'yomechonu v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael. B'galav v'zman kariv imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach v'olam ol me'el maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ah v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalei v'yitalal shmei v'kudsha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tush b'chata v'nechemata. Dam Iran ba'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimramav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha. May their memories always be for a blessing. And let us say amen. And so as we turn in our Siddurim to Kiddush, I'm going to invite everyone onto the screen so you can see some of the people who are in the room. So everyone who's in the Zoom room, you're on the screen now as we just offer a few announcements before offering Kiddush. So tomorrow morning, 8:30, it is a festive morning service and Yizkor, which means there is no Torah study tomorrow. But at 11 o'clock, there is a freedom dance in the parking lot. We still have spaces, so you can register to have a freedom dance in the parking lot to dance out the festival of Pesach and to come together in that way. Alongside that, with our ACE group, our adult community engagement group, we have a cook and chat on April 6th. They have a trivia night on April 10th. So please do check the websites for details about that. They promise to be wonderful events. Two other things coming up this week. On April 5th, we'll begin our book group as we're reading Rabbi Art Green's book, Judaism for the World, and we will be welcoming Rabbi Green in the month of May for a session for the whole community. You don't have to come to the book group to come to that final session, but if you do want to read the book with members of the community, then you certainly can. And on April 7th, it's Yom HaShoah that evening, and alongside a service at 6:45, a brief service, we will then have Nick O'Donnell, our member, in a conversation talking about the effort to restore art that was looted by the Nazis to its original Jewish owners. So we're ending Pesach with lots going on around the temple, lots for you to join in with as we turn now in our Siddurim to page 5, and it's a special festive Kiddush that we offer this evening.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, urei piri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'am, v'romemanu mikol hashon, v'kirishanu b'mitzvotav. V'titen lanu Adonai Eloheinu b'ahava, Shabbatot limnucha, u'moadim l'simcha, chagim u'zmanim l'sason. Et yom haShabbat hazeh, ואת יום חג המצות הזה, זמן חירותנו, מקרא קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים, כי באנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת עם כל העמים, ושבת ומועדי קודשך, באהבה וברצון, בשמחה ובששון הנחלתנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, לקדש השבת וישראל, והזמנים לחיים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם, המוציא לחם מן הארץ. Amen.
And for our closing song this evening, we have the band joining us one last time. And so we say a tremendous thank you to our student Rabbi Leah for her beautiful words, for Jay-Z and Cantaholis for their music, and of course for Shir Chutzpah, whose music has uplifted our service this evening, with one last song for the service tonight.
One, two, 1, 2, 3.
We say thank you again to Shir Chutzpah and Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom, friends. Good Shabbos.
Shalom.
Chag Sameach.
Shabbat Shalom, Hag
Shabbat
Sameach.
Shalom.
Chag Sameach, Shabbat Shalom.
Yasher Koach Leah.
Thank you.
Wonderful, Leah. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Eye opening. Thank